Ghana's opposition party, the New Patriotic Party, will be going to the polls on Saturday to elect a flag bearer, a presidential candidate who would lead the party into the 2028 general election. But ahead of that, there have been a lot of issues with supporters and aspirants themselves throwing jabs at each other, and their call for party leaders and elders to ensure that they bring calm even as it goes into the presidential primary. And so with all these happening, what does it look like on Saturday? Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and tonight we want to look at the things leading up to the NPP's presidential primary, including the fact that there are two stalwarts of the party who've decided to go to court to challenge the process leading to this very election and what needs to be done. I do have on the panel with me Professor Smart Sapon. He's actually joined us via video call. He's a statistician, researcher, and political coach. Prof, good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Right, good evening, B.
I do have in the studio with me Austin Bracco Powers. He is lawyer with Nyanta Law Consult. Good evening to you, sir. It's great to have you here.
Good evening, Beatrice.
I do have on my left side as well Mr. Emmanuel Kutin. He is Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism. It's great to have you as well. Good evening to you.
Thank you, Beatrice, and for having me.
We'll be joined via video call very shortly as well by Arthur Kennedy, who is an MPP stalwart. Remember that we're streaming live on 3FM 92.7. Do send us your comments and we'll read them back to you. Perhaps I should start with you, Prof, because you deal with data as well. The MPP has been in opposition for the last 1 year, I should put it. What would be your assessment of the party in opposition, even as it prepares to elect a leader towards 2028 general election?
Right, a very good evening to your good self and to the team in studio and to our cherished viewers across the globe. The NPP has done well. It's been a year of trying to overcome the defeat of 2024, and so it's been full of activities. They went through the after elections report of what could have constituted the factors that led to their defeat. I think the most popular one we refer to is the Michael Quay's report, out of which came the Constitutional Review Committee and the subsequent amendment that gave room for some more delegates to be added to the current delegates list. Then they went through the top-down approach, which brought a lot of chaos in the party, at the party and then the national level. But all too soon, the candidates, 5 of them who accepted to go by the top-down approach, have, gone through the process, and they are about winding up, and we hope to see what the outcome will be on Saturday. But all in all, it hasn't been easy at all. You and I have been in the country, and you've seen how tough it has been for the NPP, both for the party and then the party in parliament. But that is how it's supposed to be. If they really have to come out stronger, they have to accept themselves to the challenges they are going through. Only that they should manage it so that it doesn't further divide the party, but at the end of the day, it tries to unite them. So in brief, I think it's not been easy for them, but gradually they are overcoming the hurdles one at a time as it comes to them.
Mr. Kutin, from a security point of view, how would you assess the NPP, a party that is getting ready to elect a leader that they hope would take power from the NDC in 2028?
Well, B, thank you for having me once again, and very good evening to my co-panelists and our cherished listeners across the world. In fact, it has been a very difficult journey for the party, especially given that they were not expecting to lose the last elections and the manner which the defeat came. So obviously, they were trying a whole lot of things to get back to its fate. I think that if you look at the party in general, from the party headquarters and the things that went around and how they competed with the by-elections that came in the last few months, they were quite competitive, except that the behavior of the leadership in parliament, they brought the party to some form of disrepute, especially when it got to these corruption-related investigations when Chairman Wutumi and co were arrested and they had to pick it at Yoko. And then came how the party handled the issue of Ken Ofori-Atta. As we talk now, you see that Ken Ofori-Atta is an albatross on the neck of the party. And that is something the party must do to disassociate itself from the person. And His Excellency, the former President Nana Akufo-Addo, did indicate no single individual is bigger than the party. And the party is rebranding for the good people of this country to buy. And if you go to social media and you look at the comments around Ken Ofori-Atta, is bringing the party into disrepute. And I think the party initial handling of the matter didn't help at all. And I think moving forward, the party need to come out and dissociate itself from the activities of Ken Ofori-Atta.
But how will that influence what's going to happen on Saturday?
Well, it looks as if it looks. Are we talking?
Because
we're
looking at what is coming on Saturday and how that eventually could shape what happens to the party in 2020.
If the assessment is based on what is happening on Saturday, I think that if you look at the party overall, it's been polarized. And I think if you look at the campaign around the 5 main presidential candidates, it's very obvious. People who are in government are supporting the former presidential candidate of the party, that is His Excellency, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. They feel that he's been there, he's better positioned to carry the mantle. But I think that Ken has also done very well if you look at how he has prosecuted his campaigns, and I think anything is possible on Saturday. We shouldn't write Ken off come this Saturday. For Komna Japan and Brach Achampon and the former education minister, I think that in advanced democracy, if you look at how internal party politics are run, they should have been stepping aside to support the two leading candidates. But you know, in Ghana, everybody wants to go to the fore and take the fore at the end of the day. So I think that if the analysis is based on what will happen on Saturday, there's really much to talk about than to say that the party is polarized and everybody can see on the lines. And it's very clear. And the challenge for the party is after Saturday how it can unite.
How it can unite after Saturday. Mr. Bako Powers. Especially regarding the bit about Nyaho Tamaklo and Frimpong Boateng going to court to really challenge the constitutionality, really, of just using the delegate system when you have people who have cards and are in good standing, who could equally be considered to vote.
I think that if you want to talk about the action that has been initiated in the Supreme Court, it is important for us to situate the conversation. It is targeting the various political parties, including MPP, NDC, CPP. And you must understand that the applicants are asking the Supreme Court to make a declaration that the delegate system, it's actually unconstitutional, which for me personally, I don't see the argument, because I have argued that when you look at the system practiced by ancient Athens, where all males had to gather, assemble, and take decisions. That was a direct democracy. But today it's no longer feasible because of the population size. Now, and you see, when you read the entire constitution, it lends credence to indirect election. That is to say that the constitution itself gives room to political parties to put in place internal structures to ensure that they get a candidate to lead them. So I don't think this action, even though I agree, I think it's a good action which will help us to test our democracy. I think it won't yield any for looking at the constitutional framework we are operating with.
So the Article 55.5, which they used as well, of course, they quoted other other areas as well. It says the internal organization of a political party shall conform to democratic principles, and its action and purposes shall not contravene or be inconsistent with this constitution or any other law.
So the question we should be asking them is that, does the delegate system in any way contravene or breaches the 1992 constitution? It doesn't. Because even in democracy itself does not crave or does not seek to impose itself on everything. Democracy itself acknowledges some limitations. In fact, when you read the 1992 constitution, it is clear that the rights the rights you're entitled to are subject to some limitations that are important and good to be done and to be placed within a democratic system or structure. So I don't think the delegate system then. What it means is that we should be asking ourselves, why don't we have all members of the constituency representing their individual constituency in parliament instead of selecting
people to
someone to represent them? Then we should be questioning that. What they are seeking the Supreme Court, they want the Supreme Court to do is to declare that this indirect system disenfranchises a lot of people. But don't forget that even when you read Article 42, it says before you are entitled to vote, you must be 18 years and above. What happens to those who are 17 years?
But you must have a card.
17 years. What happens to those who are 70 years? So if they are saying that the delegate system disenfranchises a lot of people, then the constitution itself.
But the point of the 5.5 I read to you was that everything you do must be consistent with the constitution, which means that if it is against the age limit of the constitution as regards at which age you can vote, obviously it's not applicable.
It does not, and there's nothing like age limit. When you look at the delegate system is more like an electoral college. It is a group of people representing specific interest groups, and they have been selected to partake in the election of a presidential candidate or a parliamentary candidate. So when you look at the Article 55 that they quoted, it only deals with the fact that your structures must conform. And that I'm saying that in a democracy, it is permissible to place some obstacles, limitations, because democracy itself does not mean absolute control, that people have unfettered access to everything that they want. There must be some limitations. That's where you're right, and that's where someone's right starts.
Begins, yeah.
So we must be careful. I think what they are calling for, this action, as much as I agree, it helps to broaden and strengthen our democracy. It is, I believe, is much ado about nothing.
Much ado about nothing, you say. Perhaps we'll come back to it later, but I want to come back to you, Professor Sapon. Yesterday, we had the information that Global Info Analytics, with its latest poll, was indicating that Bawumia is leading by 57%. Well, just a few hours ago, another poll also came out saying that, and that is coming from the Africa Policy Lens, Bawumia is leading by 61%. Beyond the numbers, how would the win of Bawumia mean for a party, especially when they've been throwing off jabs and really strong animosity going into this presidential primary?
Well, so I think I came out with mine quite earlier, and we've discussed it extensively on other programs on this very platform. And the recent two that has come is following the same trend. The one from Musa Danko and the one you just referred to, African Policy Lens also. So what if I was an aspirant, I will not still give up, even though I have said Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is leading, Musa Danko have said so, you have just referred to African Policy Lens also. I will still do my finishing tactics very well. One thing candidates must know is that what we do is to give them a feel of the nature of the soup, but not to let them relent, or for the person we say is winning to also go and rest and say, oh, we have won already and all those things. So we wish them well. While we wish them well, this is also to give them an indication that they must begin to nurture some high-level emotional posturing or intelligence or capacity to take whatever the outcome of the day would be. Don't be too certain and too sure of yourself go in there, do your best, but then be prepared that what the polls are saying could come through, so that you have some partial arrangements made to take the outcome of the day if it doesn't favor you. That is what would be my first advice. My second advice to them is that it is largely a family fight. And so the extent to which they've vilified themselves and the comments they've made should be enough. I mean, a few days to election, by now you should be mobilizing your ranks. Yeah. This is not the time we should be hearing them firing and firing. It's unnecessary. They should close their ranks and see the outcome of Friday, and they should be ready as a family to embrace it and decide to support whoever wins the day. That's where I think the maturity and the intelligence will be required of them. So yes, the polls have come. Some spiritual persons too have said other things contrary to what the science and data is saying. It is all good, but I am very optimistic that with the nature of the work that we do, science and data will prevail, and it should be a basis for all the 5 aspirants to prepare their minds for the possible outcome, so that they will not be too shocked of the outcome. So for me, everything they would have to say, they've said. We can't advise them now. All that they've said, which is worthy of recording, have been recorded by those who may need it for future use and all those things. But at least for the few days that are left, they should keep the tempo quite calm. The police have assured us that they are going to give us not less than 70 per polling station, 70 men per polling station. They should cooperate with the police. They should cooperate with the EC. We do not want to, after the competition, discuss, among other things, chaos and beatings and those things. We don't want to add those ones to the discussions we'll be doing after the contest. We want to discuss how peaceful the process went and the aftermath thereon. So this will be my few advice to them as they inch towards Saturday.
And Mr. Kutin, on the bit of security, what do you foresee? Because, again, the supporters have been very invested in the aspirant, as it were. And, yes, really coming on Saturday, what you expect or foresee could happen with really all the predictions that have already come out?
In fact, if you look at these very presidential primaries, it presents some distinctive security challenges that need very careful analysis and proactive management. And I think the management of the electoral cycle, and when I talk about management, the party management system, they were not proactive in foreseeing some of these things. Like the peace pact they signed 10 days to elections, to some of us, it was quite belated. I think they should have done this thing about 3-4 months ago, put a code of conduct, and make sure they shepherd the 5 presidential candidates, aspirants, to make sure their campaigns are based on the context of ideas and not the kind of attacks we have seen.
But the peace pact, it wasn't just the candidates who were there. We heard the IGP himself was there, giving some sort of strong assurance that my men will be ready to ensure the right thing is done within the polling stations.
You see, they came to witness. Who were the direct beneficiaries of the peace pact? Is the presidential aspirants, and that could trigger down to their campaign team and obviously and ultimately to the delegates. So what I foresee is what we have always known, this internal party security dynamics. 1, delegates intimidation and violence, especially in constituencies that you see that the races are tight. And you know, this has been with us since our 4th Republican Constitution. And the second one I fear is the monetization and vote buying. And no more often than not, these things happen in the open. They kind of try to even calm delegates, sometimes transport, giving money in the name of transport, food, and those kind of things. I think we must take agent steps if we really want to get our democracy to where it ought to be. And you know, many of us have advocated for how political parties can be financed and checked therein to stop this kind of malpractices. beyond electoral integrity, it has a lot of national security implications. You know, these bad boys in the system, they try to look for political cover by sponsoring potential candidates that can emerge and ultimately become presidents. And you know, it goes beyond just the primaries. And this is what we have seen in the country over the period. Another thing I foresee is the operational security challenges, especially around the ballot itself and the electoral fraud system, the mechanisms they'll put in place to check these things, especially the verification system. And I think that if you witness what we had in Akotia, even though it's very distinctive from here, the police should apply the same methodology in consultation with the party and by extension the party structures. If you are not a voter, you shouldn't be allowed into the inner parameters. I think that will check some of these things. As for these things, they've always been with us. And more often than not, when you see national executives in particular seeming to clamor for a particular candidate, that's when they institutionalize some of these practices. Another thing I foresee, and you know, is misinformation during the last days.
It hasn't even started.
A lot of, you know, AI can just mimic someone's voice, and then meanwhile the person is sitting somewhere and it's not true. So this is where the media will have to come in and play a very critical role. Assess and do verification and make sure you respond quickly to make sure the public are not misinformed. And beyond that, you look at the broader political security implication, the NDC exploiting the chaos within the MPP, and even to a larger extent, this external interests as well. Don't forget that in any internal elections we have in this country, the government in power are waiting to pounce, and there may be even other external security threats. That's why, like the professor said, this is a family affair. It shouldn't have gone the way it went, because you have armed the ruling government, the NDC, ultimately. And when any of the candidate emerges, reconciliation becomes a very major problem. But the most critical thing, and I fear for this country, is the way the party is allowing itself to be used as a proxy for identity conflict.
How do you mean by that?
You see, if you look at these very primaries, campaigns on regional and religious line has been very active. And if you look at this country, we are about 47 plus ethnic groups in this country. And the strength of our democracy is our diversity. So I don't see why MPP should allow itself a presidential contest that should be a contest of ideas to degenerate into where somebody is coming from or the religion somebody belongs to. I think delegates might take critical note of this and don't buy into the ideas of people who preach some of these things. It had a very wider national security implication for the country.
Let me come to Dr. Arthur Kennedy, who's joined us now. Doc, if you can hear us, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Doc, just a few days for the MPP to elect. If you could kindly reduce the volume on your set. We're getting some feedback here. So just wanted to really get your thought, the issues leading into this very primary that we're having on Saturday. As a stalwart of the party, how do you assess what has happened so far and how that could influence what we see on Saturday and beyond?
Well, some of us have not been surprised by what has happened. Remember when this whole process was starting, some of us warned that this top-down approach was the equivalent of building the roof of a house before starting the foundation, and that it was going to lead to trouble. And all the way up to discussion of the Peace Pact, it seems like, contrary to the expectations of those who designed this process, the supposed unity is unlikely to emerge. We've seen that this process has led to a lot of divisions. So I don't know that it will solve the problems that they were cleverly trying to sidestep. I think that first, the lawsuit by Professor Frimpong Boateng and Yahotamaklo underlie the problems that have always been in the background. The truth of the matter is that there is a schizophrenic experience in the MPP. The delegates are happy, they are being given money, so they are invested in the process. But the rest of the party outside the delegates are depressed and demoralized because they see that their party is heading closer and closer to trouble. The gentlemen there, unfortunately, I didn't get their names, so I apologize.
Emmanuel Kutin is a security analyst, and we have a lawyer, Baku Powers.
Yes, the lawyer talked about that he didn't think that the suit would win. The suit has actually a lot of merit. The lawyer pointed out helpfully that our political parties are supposed to operate in manners consistent with our constitution. Our constitution says clearly, for example, that the state should do everything possible to fight corruption when people are buying votes openly during an election. That does not appear to be consistent with the principles of our constitution. When we have a delegate system, that itself is undemocratic. It's not that delegate systems cannot be democratic. They can be. But for example, the reason why our country doesn't have equal number of constituencies in every region is that the regions have different sizes, or the fact that different constituencies have different people voting. We have a situation where, for example, Wale Wale constituency and Bantuma constituency will have the same number of delegates, when truthfully, or the same number of delegates as a place like Ablekuma. When truthfully, the strength of the party in those two places are significantly different. Not only that, we have situations within our political parties where people keep voters' registers under their bed. We remove people's names. Just a few days ago, we found out that Honorable Cynthia Mamle Morrison and 200 of her followers have been removed from the voters' register. Some of these removals are clearly unconstitutional and illegal, but there are no redress. People win mandates. If we say that our system must be democratic, they win mandates and somebody says, we can't work with you. And they go and remove them blatant. So all these are some of the things that give the suit merit. We have DC elections in which people openly come and sit on radio and say they bought my votes. We have people running for political party offices who may be unqualified to run for national offices because of corruption and other things. We have dark money that is unaccounted for. So all these are things that the lawsuit seeks to clean up. And to return back to the MPP's primary itself, somebody said, we should not fight these things based on ethnicity and all that kind. That is always what has happened. In 2008, 2007, 2008, after the MPP primary, the Daily Graphic, not me, said I had the best ideas of any candidate running. I got one vote. You think it was because of the campaign based on ideas. So there is a lot wrong with our democracy that we should clean up before it engulfs us. And I think, unfortunately, that what is going to happen on the 31st will not solve any of the problems the MPP had, and they sought to sidestep by concocting this very early system in which we'll pick a flag bearer before we pick our World Cup team. When the World Cup is happening in 6 months and nobody will pick the team in January.
Doc, it looks like you haven't forgotten the pain of getting that one vote, although you probably had one of the best ideas going into that.
Well, I wouldn't call it pain. I would call it's a learning process. In life, you always learn. I'm just saying that respectfully to the lawyer that ideas have nothing to do with our politics. And as someone told me, Ghanaian politics is about who ghosts we invoke and which ethnicities we come from or mobilize.
There's the concern also about, for instance, a Baumia win. And with the polls, if we are going by what the polls are saying so far, Musa Dankwa and what I read earlier also giving him 61%, it seems most likely that he is going to get the nod of the delegate. But ahead of that, there were some MPP MPs who declared support for him, other MPP executives as well doing so, and people thinking that that might have influenced the kind of animosity that we have seen in the party going even ahead of this presidential primary. How do you anticipate that could worsen things, perhaps, during this presidential primary and when it is done?
Yeah, it is going to exacerbate things because you remember both in the primaries leading to 2024 and in this primary, there is widespread perception among party members that this whole system is being set up and being engineered to reach a predetermined outcome. That does not necessarily mean that Dr. Baumia is not a good person. He, on his own right, might be an excellent candidate, but the process is flawed. And when you have a flawed process, we saw the results. The last time, at least 20% of John Mohammed's voters themselves confessed that they were NPP members. There were more who stayed at home. And if all those people had voted for Dr. Baumia, he would be president today. The reason they didn't vote, in my view, has nothing to do with who he is or where he comes from, but it has to do with the process. A lot of people felt disenfranchised by the process. They thought the process was unfair, and this quickly installed primary system before anybody could lace their boots. A lot of people think it's a very transparent and thinly disguised attempt to foist him on the party before other people are ready. And if we do that, not because he's a bad person, but because of the process, people are going to do the same thing they did in 2024. And it seems that the last word in picking the MPP presidential candidate, unless we have already kissed away 2028, will not be delivered on Saturday.
Will not be delivered on Saturday. When we come back, we'll look into really what leaders and elders of the party could do going into this presidential primary, as well as after the votes have been cast. Do stay with us. And you're still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice Adu. Tonight, we're looking at the MPP presidential primary with just a few days to that. That is happening on 31st of January 2026, and that's on Saturday. This evening, I do have on the panel with me, via video call, Arthur Kennedy, who is an MPP stalwart. I also do have via video call as well, Professor Smart Sapon, statistician, researcher, and political coach. In studio here, Austin Kwabena Brako Powers, lawyer, Nyanta Law Consult, and as well as Mr. Emmanuel Kutin, Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. So we're talking about really a win of the candidate for the unity of the party. And I want to bring to you excerpts of an interview I had with a founding member of the NPP, who is also a former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, as regards to what elders of the party are doing in terms of dealing with some of the exchanges that they've had to hear and see, and also really the way forward as regards to the unity of the party. Watch this. How do you then interpret a lot of comments from people, both members and leaders, that whatever it is that we are seeing in the current government is because of what the NPP did before they lost power?
Basically, we accept certain problems. We accept that certain decisions were not right. We accept that certain actions and inactions should be done differently, so that when we are in power again, we'll better serve the people. And those internal admissions are very, very important. If you don't accept your wrong, you cannot improve upon your performance in the future. Go and ask Obeda Samoa what happened to him at an NDC Congress. Go and ask ACM. I'm talking about a level playing field. People
feel this has gone on for too long, and perhaps leaders, including yourself, have failed at solving this, which is why just a few days to the presidential primary, we're still hearing all these things coming up from among...
We'll continue to hear them. Many of them come with the supporters, and sometimes they may even say things that the candidate does not really approve of. But nevertheless, the committees that are responsible for discipline, I tell you, they are busy calling people their attention to what is not acceptable, and also the Council of Elders using their advisory capacities as well on these matters.
The candidates themselves have been throwing jabs. Who has been called to the disciplinary committee?
Disciplinary committee issues, those are internal documents. In fact, some people have even asked why we as a committee did not make copies available to certain personalities in the party. But it was not meant so to be. That is why we reported to the National Council of the party, the highest decision body outside conference. When we report to them, we have washed our hands of it. And they've started implementing some areas, and they are going to implement more in due course, which we quietly are observing. Nobody ever publishes such reports. They are not meant for the public. The NDC never has. The MPP will not do so. Why? Because those who commission, you report to them, and they use aspects as they think fit to improve upon situations.
The fact that the MPP or political parties must respect democratic principles. And yet, this very presidential primary you're going into, a number of people have expressed reservations about why the party has chosen to do this upside down. Instead of organizing your grassroots elections, you've decided to do presidential first.
You've jumped to another area. There's no upside down. And you realize that soon after the choice of the presidential candidate, we are going back to the bottom to the top approach.
So why did you choose it this way?
No, but this one, you see, the tenure, the constitutional provision for the choice of a presidential candidate has not lapsed. And people sometimes forget, it has not lapsed. Therefore, we are not doing any top bottom. Any time within this period that we're talking about, we can select our presidential candidate. Therefore, we decided to select the candidate early so that we shall have someone who will now stand for the party. To have it early so that a lot of the schisms that were taking place will end as soon as possible. So you realize that when we went to amend the constitution, with regard, for example, a little bit of enlargement towards a future enlargement, we did not include a top to bottom approach, because the situation allows us to choose any time during this period.
And those were excerpts of that interview I had with Professor Aaron Michael Okoye, a founding member of the MPP and also a former Speaker of Parliament. I want to come back to you, Dr. Arthur Kennedy. How do you interpret really the responses of Professor Aaron Michael Okoye on issues and his perspectives as well?
They are not serious. The professor has failed the party repeatedly together with his other elders, if indeed there are elders. He tellingly says, therefore, we chose to do this early. That is precisely what the problem is. People think they didn't choose to do this early to help the party. They did that to help a particular candidate. And respectfully, there are a lot of people posing as leaders who have been discredited. That is why the party should have gone to the grassroots to ask for accountability, so that those who served well may be re-elected and those who didn't could be weeded out, so that we do the traditional approach before coming to the flag bearership. This was done quickly because it was considered that it would favor somebody. And by the way, the MPP seemed to be completely oblivious to the fact that there are certain leaders who have become significant liabilities, including Professor Okoye, mildly, and the former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. If they don't know, whenever you put him in front of the public, you lose votes because of the anger resulting from his disastrous management of the country and the party.
But the former president, for instance, the former president made some great points to the party during the signing of the Peace Pact. Why do you call him a liability?
Yeah, but his conduct is inconsistent with the points he made. He was the person who divided the party and tied his hands behind his back and foisted Dr. Bawumia on the party. At that time, he could have preached unity. He didn't. He was the person who refused to sack Ken Ofori-Atta, who is now an albatross around the neck of the party. He was the one who told voters in Ashanti region their kukumoti is their own and they could do whatever they want with it. How much time do you have? Nana Addo is a liability to the party. And the earlier he takes a back seat, the better. And as long as we don't know that, we'll suffer. In the U.S., after Hubert Hoover lost to FDR in 1932, he was never on a Republican platform for decades. Jimmy Carter lost the Democratic presidential thing in 1980. They didn't invite him to a conference either for Clinton or for Obama or for anybody because he was an electoral liability. Nana Addo is a liability. It's a very big liability. And the earlier he takes a back seat, the better. And not only that, his words are inconsistent with his action. He has divided the party more than any leader in our recent history. So he cannot preach unity and be taken seriously.
Let me get your thought as well, Professor Smasap, on your interpretation of what Professor Aaron Michael Okoye told us and really how you believe the party can help deal with the cracks after the presidential primary.
Well,
hello, Prof.
It's their party. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Right. So what I'm saying is that all the elders alive currently are quite passionate about their party. What I want the elders to take note is that they are transitioning and they must stay on, pass on all the good memories and the goods and the bads and everything to the new generation. And I mean, we wouldn't want to separate the elders and call some maybe liability and others. Whatever their faults were, they can as well use that one as an experience to transition, impact, or teach the younger ones so that when they get there, they wouldn't be doing those mistakes. So I am happy that, while some of the elders are quite too angry with the system, we still have some of the elders who I am not sure are too happy. But irrespective of how unhappy they are with the current system, they are still around. An elder like Hackman Owusu-Ajima is always around. An elder like President Kufuor himself has always been around, irrespective of how unhappy he might be with the process. An elder like Peter McMahon, before CK Tedem left, he was very, very old, but always attending council meetings so that he can transition some knowledge into the younger generation. I am urging the elders available and those who are not too peeved with the system. Yes, the younger ones may not do things the way you, the elderly ones, would have done. Time has lapsed so much. Even from 1992 to 2026, currently is nearing 40 years. Things and the way things were done some 20, 30 years ago would differ. We all have seen some challenges with the leadership and all those things, but it will still be very important for the elders around to still have patience with the current generation, try to still nurture them, impact some knowledge into them before perhaps they take a bow out of politics.
Prince,
don't be too embittered when the younger ones are doing things different from how the elderly ones would have done. That would have been my advice.
That would have been your advice. Let me read just a couple of your messages and I'll come to my panel here in studio. Prince Henry Koforidia says, good evening. As we speak, the MPP has no vision and a party with no vision cannot achieve anything positive. Who built a house from top to down? So that is from Prince Henry Koforidia. A number of you have also sent in your messages as well on Facebook. I'll just read just a couple. And Evans 1 GA says, African electorates are not moved by ideas. I guess referring to what Dr. Arthur Kennedy told us earlier. Alhaji Haruna Ashaiman says, Beatrice, truth be told, delegates are interested in collecting money. That is all. Let me get your final thoughts, Mr. Kuting, on really the way forward, security-wise for the MPP before, during, and after the polls.
In fact, I think the fundamental security challenge is essentially ensuring that the process strengthens rather than fractures the MPP. Because a divided opposition does not serve anybody's interest but the party in power. And I know NDC will be celebrating with the uncomfortable happenings within the MPP. And to a larger extent, we want a vibrant democracy, and given our records in the sub-region, we need a stronger opposition to make sure it keeps the government to account to the good people of this country. So I think, by and large, the party needs some kind of amnesty beyond the presidential primaries to bring some reconciliation among aggrieved party members. If you look at the MPP, essentially, it was the party of the elite. But if you look at the last 8 years, most of the people who carried the cloud within the MPP went to sleep. And listening to Professor Makuku, a very distinguished Ghanaian and a party steward, when it came to the bottom-up approach, you saw the kind of academic dishonesty he was trying to display. And uncomfortable as that may be, I think that the success and unity of this party hinges on impartial party elders, not party elders with vested interests. And when they are speaking, you can easily see their interest in whatever they are saying. Because let's call a spade a spade. You use the old executives to elect a presidential
And if you could be
candidate,
wrapping up for me.
and then thereafter you go and elect the polling station, constituency, and regional national executives. So how would the coordination even happen? Because they were not even part of the processes that elected the person. Why were we in MPP in a hurry? because you came from electoral defeat. What you do is you do self-retrospection, a thank you tour, diagnose the problem, and see how you go around it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't think the others are helping. And lastly, if you look at the NPP in the last 8 years, they have not groomed people to take charge of the affairs of the party. And that is why we are having the challenges the party is having
That's
today.
why we are having the challenges the party is having today. Let me read this message from Prince Nanaya Oyong before I come to you, lawyer. Good evening, Beatrice and your panelists. In my view, if the party had stuck to its original constitutional process, the flag bearership contest would have been much fairer. Candidates would have had a genuine level playing field. It wouldn't have been so straightforward for Dr. Bawumia to win. There could have been real changes in the party's leadership and executives. All aspirants would have been treated as equals by the grassroots membership. Thank you very much for your message. Mr. Brakupa, is your final word?
I think largely the MPP has yet to learn a lesson, particularly from the mistakes it committed within the last 8 years. And it is because when I listen to the responses of Professor Okwe to you, some of the questions, the pertinent questions you ask, it appears to me that it looks like they have yet to learn. Because I'm surprised because he even chaired the committee.
The committee, and he said they will not publish the report. NDC has never done, MPP will not.
Because you see,
so.
some of the issues on the lips of their own members had to do with general discontent, particularly with the way the elite, the top brass behave, the way they behave towards the grassroots. And his response to your questions. But I mean, beyond that, I think MPP may have had issues within the last year, that is 2025. They've not been a good and formidable opposition party. I'm hoping that it was as a result of their internal rift, the challenges. I'm only optimistic. I'm being optimistic that post-presidential primaries, we want to see a formidable political opposition so that we can build our democracy. We don't want to see a yearly press conference of accountability like what happened a few days ago. We want to see an MPP which is formidable, capable, and readily available to hold the government accountable. But I think we should
you could be wrapping up for me,
so we should be bracing up for a few skirmishes on Saturday, which is why I support what Kutin said, that the police will have to up their game. Because we need them to be on ground and control the crowd. Because looking at some of the exchanges of inflammatory commentaries or comments between or among the political parties, we need to do a good job.
We need to do a good job. Dr. Arthur Kennedy, in 30 seconds, if you can give us your final word.
Well, we always used to say we have the men. If we have the men, we should not use area guru boys to do the work that the men should do. All over the world, there's distinguished men who lead political parties. And as long as we don't accept that, we'll continue to struggle.
We'll continue to struggle. Thank you so much, Dr. Arthur Kennedy. Okay, perhaps 30 seconds of Professor Smart Sapon. Are you still on with us?
Yeah, I'm on. 30 seconds, we'll just wish them all well. May the best candidates emerge victorious, and may they be focused even from now on the unity that they so essentially need, even before, during, and right after the elections. I'm sure we'll come and discuss that when the game is over. We wish them all well.
Thank you so much, Professor Smart Sapon. He is a statistician, researcher, and political coach. We've also had with us for a video call Dr. Arthur Kennedy, who is an NPP stalwart right here in studio. Austin Kwabenrako Powers, lawyer with Nyanta Law Consult, as well as, on my left side, Mr. Emmanuel Kotin, Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us on Agenda tonight. Do join us again next week. Have a good evening.